I'd like to call to order the Town of Chincoteague's Ordinance Committee meeting, March 11th, 2021. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
No public comment. Do we have a motion accepting the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We got a move and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So ordered. Item 4 on the agenda, the drainage maintenance program. And I'd like to turn that over to our town manager, Mr. Talbert, at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put this in here, and this meeting is supposed to be about drainage ordinances. I put this in here because I don't know how many of us, it was new to me until Harvey showed it to me, and I don't know how many of us are aware of it, so I just wanted to review the drainage maintenance program. Harvey's here to explain the finer points. You have it in your packet. Hopefully everybody's read it. Harvey, we want to give an overview of that?
Yeah, it's in a nutshell. So this is the formal drainage maintenance program that's actually required by the CRS. In a nutshell, it requires biannual inspections of some key drainage ways throughout the island, most of which are listed, just all of which are listed. And the whole idea is to identify deficiencies through a formal report. And again, the biggest thing we're trying to do here is document with CRS that we are actually doing this. This is a minimum. Let me emphasize, this is a minimum. Believe me, we check drainage just about every day all over the island, not just the
Mark, CRS is?
You've been raising for the FEMA.
Community rating system for FEMA. They're the ones that give us the rating for our flood insurance.
Yeah, I was going to ask for interpretation of all acronyms at this meeting.
You come from a life that's all acronyms, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And they could be identical to these, but mean an entirely separate thing,
Sure.
as you know. Okay. Had one question, and this is, I guess, under responsibilities under that maintenance program, 2D. It says property owners are responsible for maintaining the canals, creeks, ditches, and basins on their properties. Town personnel shall not enter into private property unless an easement has been obtained, verbal or written permission has been given, or the problem is deemed an emergency and guidance has been approved from the town attorney. Do those, just for curiosity's sake, and me being new to this, do the property lines that end on the property owner's side of the ditch, who exactly, I mean, that's not the property owner's responsibility, is it? Or
The roadside ditches?
yes.
No, that's,
I guess I'm talking in reference to those ones that are listed under attachment A as we go down further.
the homeowner, property owner actually owns that property, but there's a VDOT right away through there. So we maintain the roadside ditches.
Okay.
Now, that's not the case in all cases. Like Sunnywood Manor, the ditches are pretty much in the right of way. We own the ditches in that case, and we will maintain them. And if you notice, and this was one of the, and Billy, you and Denise were here, Jay wasn't, but when we considered taking over the roads in Ocean Breeze, that was one of the considerations. It's a 50-foot right-of-way as VDOT requires, and most of the drainage is, well, all of the drainage is within that right-of-way, but so are a lot of obstructions. People poured concrete driveways, this and that and the other thing. We weren't so sure there wasn't a shed or a trailer in the right-of-way at some point, but we've had it surveyed and we're good. But yeah, at different parts of the island, we have different situations, but for the most part, we maintain the roadside ditches because they are in the right-of-way and do belong to us.
Okay. All right. And let's see, there was another quick question on that. I think you've answered a couple of those questions I had just in your opening statement. For the most part, we you talk about the drainage problem report. And has a person completes that, a resident or whatever completes that, is that report, are they given a resolution on that report?
Yes.
Okay,
And they're actually maintained back in the public works office.
okay. And under 6, I think it's 6,
And Jay, if I may, I guess it would be a good thing. Most of the deficiencies have been corrected way before we go out to a formal inspection.
okay.
It's rare that we discover a problem that we need to document that we haven't already done.
All right, well, that's a good thing. I guess I didn't see a completeness in that statement, as far as, really telling the person or whatever party what needs to be done here. I seen the completion pattern, but I didn't see that in that document. Under section 6 maintenance, it talks about structural project, and under that lists bridges. Who do we, for instance, the bridge going from Chincoteague to Assateague, who do we communicate with? Who are the parties we communicate with when we have an issue regarding?
That would be the National Park Service.
Okay, so you actually,
Our world stops just east of McDonald.
okay. Well, there's some correlation between the two organizations as far as drainage is concerned, is it?
It's not so much drainage, Jay, road maintenance, anything like that. There's a lot of coordination. But like I said, once you get past, it's probably, 100 feet past McDonald's, there's actually a joint in the road there where we paved up to the property line.
Yeah. Very close to across the street from the museum and such.
No, a little bit east of that. A little very,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Kind of right there where the marsh starts.
So it basically covers all that. Sorry to kind of
Not a problem.
roll on here. I'm just trying to get acclimated with a lot of this stuff. It talks about disturbance. I've seen it in the nuisance documentation. I've seen that stuff, and I'm just going to throw a hypothetical at you. If I'm, say for instance, I just want to extend my driveway, and I want to dig out a little bit and put some crush and run in there, and what kind of guidance do I need on that? And this would be an existing property, but just
You talking in front of your house maybe on Wayne Road?
possibly.
Okay.
Are we talking state or private is the question?
State road or private road?
It's a state road.
If it's a state road, there's really anytime you put a permanent structure, concrete, anything, again, a permanent structure, the town will issue you a land use permit. It's in the VDOT right away. So,
Okay.
depending on what you're doing, if it's just crush and run, I don't consider that a permanent structure.
Okay, now if I come in on an existing driveway and just extend there, if I still cause excavation disturbance on that property, it's minimal excavation disturbance, it's no issue.
The one thing you do anytime you put a culvert in, a pipe, and it's, I think actually, in the nuisance ordinance, it talks about it. You need the permission, you need to, explain the size, tell Public Works what size you're gonna use, and get a formal approval before you install.
Right. Now, if I already have have a driveway there,
Right.
and I'm coming in on private property and doing an extension, but I'm still doing minimal disturbance.
Right.
It's
You talking about extending it beyond the driveway,
extended
along the
width-wise,
ditch? Yeah,
width-wise.
making it wider? Yeah.
No, nothing dealing with the ditch at all.
You mean the driveway itself?
I'm talking about the driveway itself.
Unless you're over 10,000 square feet? No, there's no requirement.
And I guess as long as I'm a certain distance from the adjacent property line.
Actually, no, you can pour concrete right up to the line, can't we, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It was kind of off the wall question there, but.
That's why we got all the experts in the room.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I guess we're pretty, anybody have any questions regarding the drainage maintenance program? Could
Not that part. My questions come in on number 5, I believe.
Okay. All right. There being no further questions on item 4, we'll move on to item 5, and I want to open that up for discussion on the drainage ordinances.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to just give you a little background. I was asked to schedule an ordinance committee meeting specifically for discussing a possible drainage ordinance. So I did a lot of research, talked to Harvey, read minutes of meetings, read the time code, and what I was able to come up with is basically right now, and as Mark said just a few minutes ago, if you want to do any kind of fill on your property or land disturbance, it could be excavation, it could be clearing the property, it could be filling the property. If it exceeds 10,000 square feet, then you have to go to the County of Accomack and get a land disturbance permit. That is actually written in our code book, that you will go to the county if and get a permit from the county. It's a section of the town code. Below 10,000 square feet, there are very, very few requirements that you have to meet, which is some of the problems that we're having. Right now, the thing that we have in our quill of arrows here, or magazine of ammunition to use, is basically the nuisance ordinance, which I've included in there. When you get down to nuisances enumerated and you get down to number 10, it basically says that you cannot fill an existing drainage way, be it a ditch, swale, and it goes on and on about the different types of drainage you can have. If that drainage way drains to a system, if it's something that just drains your backyard to your backyard or to another piece of property you own, it doesn't connect to a system, it's no harm, no foul. But you cannot place obstructions in a drainage way which is connected to a system on the island. That was all we had for years. I think it was about 2 years ago, and I put the date in here. There was an addition made. It was added May 16th of 2019. There was an addition made to the nuisances that says basically you can't fill any property, be it in a drainage way or not, if it affects the drainage pattern on adjacent properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I think we all agree is common sense. The issue that we have right now, and if you go back and read the minutes surrounding that meeting where that was approved, you'll see this issue discussed, is we have really no way of enforcing that right now. If you have a lot and the lot is low and you want to fill 5,000 square feet of it, 50 by 100, you can do that with nobody's permission, and you can fill it as high as you want to fill it. There's no permit required. There's no real regulations. I mean, you may in fact run afoul of this last section that I read, or that I referenced, but really, we have no way, as the town, we have no way of defining that you've actually violated that. And the reason we don't is because there's no permit required to fill a piece of property. In order for us to prove that you've actually violated that section of the ordinance, we would have to know what the property looked like before you started filling. And, I mean, we can all go out and look at a piece of property and say, oh, there's water standing on it, and go back 2 weeks later after all the dump trucks in the world have been there and say, oh, it's high, there's no water standing. But that doesn't quantify it. And going to court with that is going to be problematic. First off, if usually we don't hear about the problem until the lot's already filled and the neighbors are complaining they've got more water than they used to have. That's an issue, because we don't have the pre-fill condition of the property. And the reason we don't is because there's no permit required in order to fill. If you get a building permit right now and you go in and ask Mark for a building permit to build a structure, first thing he's going to tell you to do is say, okay, there's a few hoops you got to jump through, elevation surveys, that sort of thing. You got to fill out the permit, but the next thing he's going to want you to do is go out and define your property lines and then stake out the house or the structure that you want to build there. So he can go look at it and measure the setbacks and make sure that you meet the setbacks of the zoning code and that sort of thing. So in other words, he's observing the pre-construction condition. And then after you start building the foundation and everything, he can go back and verify that you've actually done what you said you were going to do. We don't have a procedure in place right now for filling a lot similar to that. So it's going to be difficult for us to enforce this. Along those lines, I was looking for something to come up with that would be straightforward, that the average homeowner could go out and understand, and we could use as common sense guidelines for filling a lot. It's a little bit like looking for a unicorn. I've talked to other people that are in the business. That's what they do. They do stormwater management. I've looked at other municipalities. It's difficult to find something. It's basically all or nothing is what I'm getting at. You either don't have anything, or you've got a full-blown E&S plan that's done by an engineer with stormwater management that costs several $1,000s. Neither of those cases are desirable. We don't want, if you're going to fill 5,000 square feet of your property, we don't want you to have to go out and spend $8,000, $9,000 on an E&S plan from an engineer just so that we know the stormwater is going in the right place. We'd like to get something along the lines that you could understand it, the property owner could understand it, and understand this is the guidelines they have to follow, and it's easy for us to apply, and it's enforceable. The problem comes in that as you start to tell people how to do this, you end up dabbling in the engineering part of it, which is going to cost money, time, and effort. And to illustrate the point, if you look at the section that I put in here that's in blue, this is the closest thing I found to a single lot residential, I want to just fill a part of my lot scheme. And this comes from another locality. If you're going to start a project that's 500 square feet or less, 10 by 50, 22 and a half square, something like that, there are very few regulations. Basically, they want you to retain your stormwater on your property, but they don't tell you how to do it. They just say, try to do that. But once you exceed that 500 square feet, which I think we all will recognize is a very low number, the regulations become a bit onerous. They reference BMPs, which is a typical term when you're talking to engineers about stormwater, best management practices. Mm-hmm. They give you the design criteria. The object is still the same. They want you to control your stormwater on your property, and if you're going to discharge stormwater to the municipal system, you can't discharge water at a faster rate after construction than you were before construction. So that means you may have more runoff, but we're not gonna let you put it in the system any faster than it was coming before, because we don't want you to overload the municipal system. That's what this whole thing is about. And when you get down to it, you get down and you see all of the calculations that are required, and I'm gonna tell you, there's no hard math here, but you're getting in the first and second year engineering students when you do this. So it's getting a little onerous. One thing that I will tell you, just to illustrate the situation that we're in, if you go back up to this section right here, drainage gradients, a grass swale, which is basically what we use along the roads to drain the roads, Sunnywood, anywhere, Rosedale, this is a grass swale. You'll see that their minimum pitch is 2%. In a 500 feet of ditch, that's 10 feet of fall. So from one end of Sunnywood to the other, you'd have to have over 10 feet of fall to get this gradient. There's no way in the world you can do that on Chincoteague.
Right.
Okay, this is another locality, and I put that in there just to illustrate the point. We're in a kind of unique situation. I think I've told y'all before. It's like draining a pool table. You put a very small shim under one end, the ball rolls to the other. That's about the best you can do. So, that being said, I think there is some room here to get some common sense things on the books, but it will take some study. It'll take some review by people who could very possibly be filling one day, contractors, business owners, the general public, to take a look at this and see that if we can come up with something common sense that everybody can follow, that we think is enforceable and everything, I think it would be a worthwhile effort. And I'll tell you the reason I think it would be a worthwhile effort. This was done back in 2011. This is the Stormwater Master Plan for the island of Chincoteague. It was done in 2011. It was done by Clark Nexon, which is a very qualified engineering firm. It only cost us, and it was proposed in 3 phases. This is the end of phase 1, which was the only phase completed. This cost us $58,000. Actually, I think with the reimbursables, it was $66,000 because copies, travel, and there's something. There's some reimbursables they don't put in there. They just charge you extra for. So I think it was about $66,000 this cost us. The next phase, phase 2, is estimated by Clark Nexon to be $152,000. So I think it would be a worthwhile effort for us to maybe ask the Planning Commission or to see if we can come up with some common sense standards to put in an ordinance that would be enforceable and be effective. And with that, that's all I wanted to say, and I'll take any questions, or we'll all take any questions if you have them.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that there's enough intelligence in this group right here, in this town right here, that we can come up with something without spending $158,000 on the next phase. To me, common sense is pretty much black and white. To some other people, it's not. I don't think it's fair that if you've got a house sitting on a piece of property and that house has been there for 75 years, and then you've got an empty lot next to it and somebody buys it and somebody wants to fill it in as high as they want to go, it's not fair that all that water is coming back in on that property that's been there for and built for 75 years. It has to be a common sense effort. It has to be, and there is a common sense solution. And if you're going to spend $10,000 to fill in your property with truck after truck after truck of dirt, then you should have common sense enough to know not to flush out your neighbor and put in a swale or something like that. It is not fair to the adjoining property owners. And we don't think we run into this all the time. But there are certainly times when it does play in a factor. And that's my irritation with it. I know we've had a tremendous amount of rain. I know that. But we deal with these same issues year after year, whether it's rain or not. I know we're on an island. I know it's marsh. I know there's always going to be water standing at some point. But there's got to be you've got to be held accountable for what you're doing to your neighbors when you're steady filling in. I know that these guys out here can come up with it. I got all the faith in you in the world, you can come up with it.
Yeah, and right now in all new construction, we've been asking them to do that. When they're filling in, we're getting them to put a swell in and try to drain the waters to a suitable place. Either we've got the swell and bring it to the main road with some rocks and BMPs, or try to get it to go to a certain place. Unfortunately, every lot on the island, depending on the size of where it's located at, sometimes there's really no place to put the water. In new construction, you can control it a little better. The existing homes, you cannot. And some of the existing dwellings for building, they cause themselves problems in the flood zone, and they fill the foundation up. Then they're coming out of flood compliance because they're getting crawl space below the lowest adjacent grade. And the concrete that is sub-basic.
Yeah, FEMA looks at that two ways. If it's not a terrible difference and it's just a little bit lower underneath, they look at it as a subgrade crawl space, say it 10 times, and they will give you higher insurance rates. But if it gets too deep under there, they'll call it a basement, and then you're really paying.
It's also causing the property owner to realize they're getting water on the land, but also the creek and pool underneath their house.
And I will say, since Mark's been here, he's been enforcing Section D, which was passed.
Have you had any pushback from that?
Not a whole lot. We've got a couple of lots that we've had, where we put the swells at, because they're closed, but on a couple of lots, the adjacent property owner has agreed to use part of her property to create the swell that helps them both banks.
And that is the best thing that can happen here is the property owners agree. But your example of someone who's been in this house for 50 years and someone who's filled up the adjacent property, now they're getting water back there. Let's face it, in all cases, we're not going to have property owners agree in all cases. And one point that I didn't make during all this was that the reason I'm getting when I'm talking to other municipalities about this, that they don't have such an ordinance is because they consider it a civil matter between the two property owners. Unless it affects the public right of way, they don't get into it. The only other thing I'll say about that is the argument in court that I've seen, I've read some court cases about this, there have been several in Virginia. If you fill a piece of property adjacent to a long established house next to it, and you fill that property, the argument from the lawyer on the filled property is going to be, well, the existing property used my property as a drainage pond for the last 50 years. Now that I'm finally, and I have the right to enjoy my property just as he does. And that's the argument you're going to get, the argument that I've seen. So it's a little tricky, but I think we can do it. And I know we can do it for less than $58,000. So I think we can put our heads together and come up with some common sense standards for this ordinance, and something that the council can get behind, and something that is simple enough, straightforward enough that Mark can enforce it, and if we have to go to court with it, we'll come out on the right side.
That's all I can ask. There's something has to be done, and we've seen so much this year because of the rain that we've had, that I feel like it, and with the building that continues, I just feel like that we're going to continue to see issues.
The other thing to consider is too, a lot of your building is on private streets, so there's virtually no drainage. As far as municipal drainage, there's nothing there.
Yeah, most of your hard land is built on, so what you're building on now is drainage for.
Right.
The low spots going to.
And that-
Right.
That's one of the,
It's got to go somewhere.
that's one of the points that this master plan, phase one works on. Phase one, the scope was to identify the problem and to identify the problem areas and that sort of thing. And that's one of the points that this master plan makes, is that the systems of ridges and valleys, which naturally drain the island at one point, are becoming just all ridges now.
Yeah.
And we don't have the drainage we used to. I think we all know that. We've all grown up here and understand that.
How long do you think it'd take to put a plan together to get it to council?
It's gonna take us a few months. I mean, what I asked in here was that you refer it to the planning commission, and, we work with the planning commission. Mark and I will be attending, and Harvey, when required, can attend, and, I'm sure Mr. Rosenberg will take on the challenge.
We've been there before.
Yes, I saw evidence of
And
that.
I'm very happy to see this.
Yeah.
I'm very supportive.
But I think we can, we in the office, the paid staff in the office, can do the legwork and that sort of thing, and use the planning commission, and I know that the folks on the planning commission, several of them, that will be doing legwork as well, but we can formally present it to them and work out the kinks there, and when we get it together, present it to the council as a recommendation for an ordinance, or I guess come back before the ordinance committee before it goes to council.
Okay.
It would take several months to get back to your answer for your question. It wouldn't be a couple-week thing.
Oh, why not?
Before next year's rainy season, how about that?
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion that the ordinance committee now passes this on to the planning commission to study this with the assistance of our staff here. Do I have a motion?
Yep.
Motion and
Motion
a
second,
second.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's our directive right now, is to send this on to the planning commission, and I know they're eager, as has already been explained, to attack this challenge that's set before them. So, is there anything else that we need to address here?
No, the only thing I want to say is, Mike, I appreciate you putting this ordinance committee meeting together. I think it's something that should be discussed and probably discussed quite often, because of the issues that we do have, and because of what I feel is a unique situation on this island because of drainage issues, and it's not something that we need to just push down the road as these problems, and not that we do push it down the road. I'm just saying that it's something that needs to be dealt with, and dealt with sooner rather than later.
So one related question, I know we identified the VDOT as one of our chief concerns, but at the foot of the bridge, the drainage there. Have we ever got anything back from them?
No, sir, we have not. It's a smart scale project now, isn't it? Didn't we submit it to smart scale? And we're waiting our turn with smart scale, but we identified that as our number one priority.
That's what I thought.
When we were asked.
Right.
And the same company, Cart Nexon, has done the study for the foot of the bridge, and we shared that study with the AMPDC when they submitted it.
Speaking of which, they're supposed to be here Tuesday to repair our top leg of the bridge line.
That's awesome.
Good.
That's been an ordeal. And if I could say, Mr. Chairman, as you know, the Public Works Committee gave us permission to buy a new hydraulic ditch bucket for the excavator, and they've been practicing with it, getting good with it, and they are tearing up ditches right now. So we've redoubled our efforts in ditch maintenance, and hopefully when our operators get really good at it, we'll be cleaning them out very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of activity with Sunnywood. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I'd just like to reiterate what Denise has said, that you know, you've done a fine job on this. The information you provided was very informative, and I see the work of your staff and are really getting it together. And I really appreciate Mark emphasizing that, you know, you've already been proactive in trying to get a hold on this, which is a very difficult situation. And it, you know, we just have to get it by the horns right now, I believe. Is the only way we're going to get it. You know, Denise was discussing earlier. You know, we're seeing houses, old houses, being torn to the ground right now. Or, you know, they're rebuilding, and the close proximity of these properties, you know, it makes it difficult as well to find a drainage area to send them to. The properties are so narrow, especially on Main Street and such. You know.
You got set back at 10 feet, so you don't have much room to.
Right. Yeah. But we'll get around it. Well, I appreciate it. Bill, do you have anything else to say?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
Okay. That being said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone here. We're now closed.